factors that surround the birth of an individual. For some people, delivery during delivery, they might make use of some maybe forceps or things like that that compresses the head of the baby, and before you know it, child is coming out down with epilepsy, the child is having some mental subnormality, and then you'll be like, what, there's nobody in my family that is experiencing this. How come this child is having this kind of problem?
All right, we'll begin today's conversation taking our quote from Charles Bukowski, a German-American poet, novelist, and short story writer. He once said, "Sometimes you climb out of the bed in the morning and you think, I am not going to make it, but you laugh inside, remembering all the times you felt that way." I'm sure a lot of people can relate with this one. Now, our second quote is coming from Cody Keplinger, an American author of young adult and middle grade books. She is best known for her debut novel, The Dove. She once said, "You can't control everything. Sometimes you just need to relax and have faith that things will work out. Let go a little and just let life happen." Just relax and be taken care of, like someone said. All right, very quickly, let's take our third one. And this one is from Professor Albus Dumbledore, a fictional character in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter serials. For most of the serials, he's the headmaster, or he was the headmaster of the wizarding school Hogwarts. He once said, "Happiness can be found even in the darkest of times, if only one remembers to turn on the light." Wow. Aren't you so inspired by these quotes today? Now let's relate them with what we will be discussing tonight. Warm greetings and welcome to the conversation. We're reaching you from Captain's Television Studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabelle Oji. Now, what is mental health? Mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence through adulthood. Over the course of your life, if you experience mental health problems, your thinking, mood, and behavior could be affected. Many factors contribute to mental health challenges, which includes biological factors such as genes or brain chemistry, life experiences such as trauma or abuse, family history of mental health problems, just to mention a few. And yes, it is hereditary. Now, mental health problems are common, but guess what? It is not a complete death sentence, as help is available. People with mental health problems can get better and even recover completely. Yes. Now, what are the early warning signs of mental disorder? In case you're not sure if you or someone you know is living with a mental health challenge, then some of the early warning signs that you will notice are eating or sleeping too much or too little, pulling away from people and usual activities, having low or no energy, feeling numb or carefree like nothing really matters to you, having unexplained aches and pains, feeling helpless or hopeless, smoking, drinking, or using drugs excessively more than the usual, feeling unusually confused, forgetful, on the edge, angry, upset, worried, or even scared, yelling or fighting with family and friends uncontrollably without justifiable reasons, experiencing severe mood swings that cause problems in relationships, having persistent thoughts and memories that you cannot get out of your head, thinking of harming yourself or others, the inability to perform daily tasks like taking care of your kids or getting them to school or work, and even much more. So a few days ago, we joined the online community, Twitter, to deliberate on the trending horrible bosses. You remember though? Well, if you don't remember or you didn't see that episode, then here's an excerpt from that chat that I had with Sheil Onakoya, who is a Girl Up certified strength coach, on how to deal with hashtag horrible bosses. Take a listen. They're so corrupt that if you don't greet them 5 times a day, you've already earned yourself, become their enemy. Or if you don't send them gift card on their birthdays, or even buy them gifts, and then some would even ask you to contribute for a particular occasion they are having, probably their mother's burial or any occasion like that, and that they are hosting. And if you do not pay or contribute, you have automatically registered yourself in their bad book, and they will definitely wait for you on the day of reckoning. Now, for such bosses, how do you deal with them?
Well, like I said, you can't help having those kind of people, you know, and if you can't help it, then you need to be a master at relationship building. Guard yourself by resigning. I think it's imperative.
Okay.
Because people should not stay in an environment where they can't develop, they can't grow, their health is affected. People should not stay in such environments.
Welcome back. Now, in case you missed that episode, you can watch the full interview on our YouTube portal, now showing on your screen. Our YouTube page is there already. So remember to subscribe, like, share your thoughts, and share with family and friends. So, on that premise, today's conversation is headed as we will be looking at mental health and workplace with our guest Adedayo Olaleye, who is the Executive Director at Mental Affairs. She's a mental health expert and advocate. Adedayo Olaleye will be joining us virtually via Skype from Lagos. I will see you after this time out. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is the conversation. We are reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now, you're right in time for the interview, as our guest is Olaleye Adedayo. She is the Executive Director at Mental Affairs. Hello, ma'am. You're welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you. All right. Now, let's start by getting your thought, because anytime you hear or people talk about mental health or mental disorder, the first thing that comes to some people's mind is madness. Maybe the person is mad or something. Is that all that it is to it?
Well, definitely not.
Okay.
Mental health or mental illness, it's a broad thing. But our perception in this part of the world is like when we hear anything about mental illness, it's like the people on the streets that are homeless or trying to get their bearing. But that is not just it. Mental illness is far bigger than that. And it is not, it cuts across just even people that are struggling with some challenges. Definitely that affects their mental health. Also, people that are experiencing maybe some issues that are causing sleeplessness, worries, anxiety, and all of that. So it's not just about people that we can visibly see that they are really having this illness, looking because of their the way they're dressing, the way they look, the way we can just see that they are talking out of point. Not only that, but even people that we relate with and we are seeing all around us, majority of people are struggling with one mental challenge or the other.
I'm sure I quite agree with that. I will definitely get back to that. So, can mental health disorder be considered as a disease, and what category of illness do you consider it as?
Mental health challenges or mental illness is a condition that affects the brain, and definitely whenever anything affects the brain, definitely the entire body is affected, not
Okay.
just the entire body of the individual. It also affects the people that we are living with, the people we work with. It affects even our general activities and the things that we do. So it is really a condition that is serious, and definitely it's people will see like, well, when an individual has mental illness, it cannot be managed. Like there's always a saying that whenever an individual has mental illness, the person has it for life, cannot be cured. But there is a treatment for mental illness.
Okay.
It's there is a treatment for it. Yeah.
Okay, we'll definitely get to that. So now, what are those factors responsible for or that triggers mental disorder?
There are several factors that can trigger mental disorders. I will mention a few. One
Okay.
of it has to do with the genetic factors. It is hereditary.
Oh,
That
okay.
means that maybe someone in the family may not be an immediate family, but might be maybe the grandparents, great grandparents, anyone that is connected to that person has the tendency of having a mental health disorder at any point in time. So that's the reason why we always like to like make inquiries if anybody around them or in their whether the immediate family or the extended family has experienced such an illness before. That is a real predisposing factor. Another thing is the environment that an individual find himself. If you are in an hostile environment, in an environment where it's not favorable to your mental health, there are some certain situations that can trigger mental health disorders,
Okay.
and that is another factor. Another factor has to do with an individual that has experienced a crisis or a major situations that probably cause grief, or probably the death of the loved ones. The person has lost some properties. This can as well trigger some mental health disorder. Also, another factor is the factors that surround the birth of an individual. For some people,
Oh,
delivery during delivery, they might make use of some maybe forceps or things like that that compresses the head of the baby, and before you know it, the child is coming out down with epilepsy. The child is having some mental subnormality, and then you'll be like, "What? There's nobody in my family that is experiencing this. How come this child is having this kind of problem?" And not knowing that the situations that surround the birth actually has an influence in the behavior and the outcome of the child. Also, maybe people that takes alcohol, smoked, all these are dangerous to not just the physical health but the mental health.
okay.
People that in cocaine, heroin, marijuana, and all sorts. All of these have a negative impact on the brain of the individual and the overall wellness mentally of that person. So These are factors, and even there are many much more factors that surround it. Even a workplace, a workplace whereby the individual is exposed to some certain chemicals that has gone into the individual system, and then is breaking down the cells, the brain cells gradually, and then you find out that at the old age, these people are exhibiting some symptoms, like just increase in loss of memory and all of that. Then you wonder, why is it like this? There's no other member of the family that is like this. Not knowing that exposure to all of this has actually affected even people who are pregnant. And while being pregnant, you are exposed to maybe lead, you are exposed to smokes all around, and these are passive smokers. All of these have effect not just on the individual person, but also on the baby in the womb. So there are so many factors that even what will I say, the disasters that is happening, the occurrences that are happening, these are situational factors that affect the mental health of people. And for some, they can break down with depression, they can break down with anxiety. Looking at even things that has happened even recently, all these happenings, they have effects on the human mental health. So these are the factors.
Okay, now, so we'll come down to some of these factors that you just named. Now, for someone who has mental disorder, because I hear you talk about the forgetfulness, they have forgetfulness. What are other common signs that one who has mental disorder can see or notice, and immediately you just know that there's a problem?
Great, thank you. There are classic signs, little signs. Some can be easily dismissible because, especially for someone who really does not understand things, symptoms that surrounds mental illness. Then, but there are some classic things that you can observe, and that will be a pointer that there is a problem. One
Okay.
of these is an individual that is losing sleep.
Okay.
The individual is not losing sleep before, but at a point in time, he or she's just started losing sleep for days, and then the individual is thinking, wow, what is going on? All of this is incoherent in speech. You notice an individual around you that the speech of the person is really not coherent. You're like, this person, I've been conversing with this person before. Then what is happening whereby the person is just talking out of place? The person is just the words are out of the normal. Then you will that there is a problem. Also, an individual that's just easily forgetting things, is just probably has done a particular thing now, and it's just before you know it has forgotten. You just notice like an increase in forgetfulness. Also, another symptom is when someone is outside, or probably maybe you are even indoor, and another person is trying to come in, and then you're just easily getting panic, like we call it like your heart is racing,
Oh, okay.
that can trigger panic. That can be a pointer to panic disorder or anxiety. Like you are just easily, and sometimes for other people it might be irritability. The person is just easily irritable. It's just whenever you just do a little thing, it's so irritable, and or being violent at people, which definitely the person has not been that way before.
Okay.
All of these are symptoms that, in fact, you have to really take note of it and seek professional counsel or help immediately.
Okay. So now I hear you talk about depression. So what is the difference or maybe similarities between mental disorder and depression?
Well, depression is a mental health disorder. It's a major mental health disorder, and it cannot even be taken with levity at any point in time. And then, how would you know that someone is depressed? You find out that an individual, maybe a close friend or a relation, is just being moody. Is moody, sad, and at a point in time, the person just withdraw from all those pleasurable activities that a person usually do before. You notice that a person it is a lively person, always jovial, laughing, and a point in time, the person just withdraw continuously over weeks, and it continues like that. Then there is a problem. Or
Okay.
an individual talking to is verbalizing some statements like, hopeless words, like, what is there left in this world? At least I'm just worthless. There is no hope for me. All these are pointers
Okay,
that
so for
the
all of the
person
signs, sorry to cut you in there. So all of the signs that you mentioned is something that you should look out for when you see someone without necessarily having the person open up or own up to the fact that they have mental disorder. When you see all of these signs, just know that there's a problem, right?
definitely,
Okay.
once you see this sign in an individual, it's not everybody that can easily open up to people.
Yes.
Some people, they just find it like, well, I cannot disturb my people with what I am going through. Let
True.
me just, and then, but once you notice all of these things in an individual, then know that there's a problem. Try to move close to the person and like, okay, I just noticed this. Can you talk about it? And even if, or you try to set up someone who the person trusts, and you know that this person you can actually relate with him, then
Okay.
let the person talk to that individual, and the person is going to open up. So all of this, that even without a person telling you I am depressed, all of these signs, once you see it, you know that there is a problem and the person needs help.
All right. So why do we have to engage in all of these discussions about mental health? Why is it so important to ensure a sound mental health?
You see, when an individual has a cut on the hand, the individual knows that I am feeling pains. But when it comes to mental health issues and major mental health disorders, sometimes the people who are experiencing it doesn't even know that there is a problem, especially at the initial stage. They don't know. And knowing that without mental health, there is no health at all. There is no health because the brain is the one that controls every other aspect of the body, aspect of your activities, and everything that surrounds you. Even the way you relate with people, the way we carry out our jobs, everything is affected.
Okay.
What it has to be a priority. That is why we keep talking about taking care of your mental health, because when an individual is down, when an individual breaks down mentally, the person will not be able to be effective at their job. The person will not be able to relate well with people. The person will not be able to be productive in any way. So why don't we take our mental health a priority? It is a priority, and that is why they all talk these days that take care of your mental health. Your mental health is your priority, and that's why we keep saying it. And that is the importance of mental health to an individual life.
All right, great. We're due for a break. When we come back on this break, we will definitely stretch this conversation a little bit further. Do stay with us.
That's just the approach. You
So
talk it out.
that phrase,
Just
a problem shared is a problem half solved, is not a myth. It's true.
it's not a myth. It's not a myth.
Okay.
When we keep things bottled up within us. It keeps compiling, and before you know it, later on, let a very light, tiny little thing happen. Everything escalates.
All right, welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now, if you just joined us, you've missed quite a lot because we've been talking about a lot of things with regards to mental health and how you should safeguard your mental health. With our guest, she is Adedayo Olaleye, Executive Director at Mental Affairs. All right, before we went on that break, we talked about a lot of things. Now, seeing all what is happening in the news these days, reports on wars, coups, insecurity, and insurgency, whether on the mainstream media or on social media. I had a guest one time who said, all of us in Nigeria, we are just not normal, because you cannot be seeing all these reports of deaths and corpses lying everywhere and you think that you are normal. So how can an individual, seeing all of this news flying around, still maintain their mental health and stay sane?
Well, in this world, I think all of these happenings, it's really worrisome, especially here in Nigeria. I would say we hear news of people being kidnapped. We hear news of people being killed, and that is devastating on its own. But in the course of this, each and everyone has to take responsibility in caring for one's mental health, because the way people react to things are different. The way I will react to something can be different from the way another person will react to the same situation. But overall, our wellness and our sanity is a priority. Therefore, I would say, like, whenever things happens, maybe all around us, we need to ensure that we safeguard ourselves, and these are ways that we need to safeguard ourselves. Try to condition yourself in a way like you curtail how you engage in all of these news. Whenever an event happens which is devastating to everyone, we tend to follow the news back to back. We want to know what is happening, what next, how many people have been affected, what is even going on. But all of this, we find that at the end of the day, at night when you sleep, you begin to see nightmares. So try and curtail those. Try to curtail the timing or the kind of news that you keep engaging with. You cannot continue to keep watching all the bad news. All of this affects the individual at a point. So that is one thing. Then another thing is this. For people who have experienced, maybe their loved ones or people around them, and even people that we don't even know, has gone through a particular incident and the person probably is grieving about it. Let us try to talk to people who can help us. When a situation happens and then you find it hard to cope, talk to someone around you. Tell the person this is what is going on with all of these things. Voice it out. When you voice it out, there's a level of relief or release of the tension within you. But when you bottle it up, it keeps accumulating, and before you know it, at a point in time, the entire thing escalates. So that is it. And not just for cases whereby there is war around, but even maybe in terms of domestic violence and things like that, you try to voice out to people. You don't keep it bottled up. Whenever an individual is in a situation, you don't see yourself, but people all around you, they'll be able to analyze the situation carefully. So talk to people that you trust. Also, control what you can control.
Okay.
Yes, what you can control. I mean, when a major crisis or terrorism or war is going on around, there are little things that, I mean, like a little thing that one or an individual can do. You cannot go there and say, please stop this war, and the war stops immediately. No,
Mm.
but try move yourself to safety. If that place environment you are in is not favorable for your sanity and it's causing you to panic and it's causing that anxiety, if there's a possibility of moving to a place that is at least safer, then try to move there.
All right.
Okay. Another thing that one has to do is that you talk to people who are professionals. You see, there are some things that people around us, our relations, our friends, our loved ones might not be able to understand. There are some things that we're going through that even when you tell them, some people will even tell you, if I tell you what is even going on with me, you will know that your own case is even lesser. But then you don't know the gravity of that little thing that you call little to
Mm.
that individual, because the way we react to things and the way we cope with things are different. We
Different.
have different coping ability. So the best thing is to talk to a professional, someone who is trained to handle this kind of situation. And when you talk to that person, be able to help you. So these are a few ways that you can cope with your mental health and you can safeguard your mental health, even amidst all of this chaos, all of these challenges that are going on around the world. These
Okay.
are one of those ways.
Okay, when you just even talked about things that you watch before you go to sleep, you might start having nightmares. I just remembered when we were kids, anytime you watch horror movies, you definitely will have a nightmare. So definitely that word, when they say garbage in, garbage out, it actually works for true, for real. Now, so for kidnapped victims or someone who has gone through one attack or the other, no matter how small it is, even rape or someone who has been sexually abused, the psychological effect will definitely register in their head, and it might be difficult to live for a long time. So with all of these measures that you talked about, is that the same way that the person can be able to keep their mental health in check?
Well, um, that's few of them are applicable, but there are still much more that people in this category can do to help to get that help that they need and to be able to achieve that mental stability. In cases whereby an individual has gone through this kind of um, devastating situations like rape, and we call something post traumatic stress disorder. A lot of people call it PTSD, PTSD, PTSD. PTSD is called post traumatic stress disorder. In the incidents of all these devastating challenges like rape, an individual goes through a condition that is called post traumatic stress disorder. And this condition is when an individual cannot move on after a sad or a devastating conditions or situations that has happened in the past. And those things that the individual can experience will be flashbacks. Whenever an incident that looks like what has happened or anything that can remind them of whatever has happened before, if they experience that thing or anybody says anything that relating to it, they begin to experience some panic attacks, sweatings and all of that. And they begin to experience this avoidance of some certain situations or people or places due to those things that has happened. But whenever an individual is going through this post-traumatic stress disorder, It is not something that the individual can sit at home and say, I want to manage by myself. Because at that point, the person might feel, well, I'm okay. But in reality, looking at the probably the person's work, the person's relationship with people, for example, like rape, the way the person relates with men, or someone who has gone through a maybe like in terms of war or being kidnapped, the way they talk about some people, or even when they see people that are wearing some certain type of color of clothes that relates to something that they have experienced before, they begin to avoid, and before you know it, they are hiding, they are experiencing nightmares, flashbacks, and all of that. Before you know it, they are losing sleep, and a lot of other conditions can set in. So whenever an individual is experiencing this, talk to people around you, at least
Okay.
at first. Talk to people around you. Let them know this is how you feel. This is the way you feel about that situation. And then the people that you trust and those that can be of help, they will be able to help you. They'll counsel you. They'll let you know, put your mind at rest. And then you begin to come out of it gradually. And in a situation whereby an individual finds himself or herself not being able to move on after this kind of situation has happened, the person cannot move on. It's affecting your work, it's affecting your sleep, affecting your relationship with people, even the way that you perceive some things are being affected. Then you need to seek professional help. You
All
need to
right.
seek professional help. It is nothing light. Talk to a professional, and the professional will be able to help you out
All
with
right.
it.
So, aside talking to professionals, what other solutions can that such person actually receive, or are there other remedies that they can actually receive to put their mental health in check, or are there drugs or something? And what are the recovery patterns that you notice and then know that this person is getting better?
Well, there are therapies that people in this situation can have. You know,
Okay.
everything is not about drug. But people who requires drugs, maybe to aid sleep or to relieve some kind of conditions that the person has, or probably some symptoms that the person is having, and drug will be able to relieve it, then they will be given a medication. Apart from medication, there are therapies that the individual can go through that will be recommended. We have There are family therapies for individuals who have experienced maybe domestic violence and all of that. There are cognitive behavioral therapies. Okay, there are several therapies that can be recommended for that area. And when you go through all those therapies and you are psycho educated, you begin to feel better and then come out of that situation. And before you know it, the entire thing, even when you remember, it will be like a thing of the past, and nothing to affect you negatively anymore.
All right, let's talk about mental health and the workplace. What is the impact, or what are the impact of toxic bosses or toxic relationship in the organization? How much does it affect an employee?
Yes, we are in an era whereby the situation in the country is so hard, I would say, and every organizations, they have these big targets to meet and goals to achieve, and then putting pressure on the employees to deliver what probably seem to be higher than usual. And when all the things that could motivate an employee are not there, you know, and so much pressure. And then we have people, bosses with several maybe behavioral issues that will continue to make life unbearable for employees. But in this kind of situation, if there is any employee that is in such a position, try and talk to, maybe if there is another boss or someone more superior that you can bear your concerns to, like, this is what I am going through. I cannot be able to work in this condition if I'm being shouted at, if I'm being talked down, if I'm being have been when you're just being too difficult on me. Then if the superiors are able to help, then they will be able to sort the things amicably and make the work environment to be conducive for you to work. But
Okay.
if not, you find out that every day you keep going to work. In fact, that motivation is not there to go to work, because when you know that when you get there you will be shouted at, and it's affecting your self-esteem, it's affecting the way you perceive yourself,
Even
it's
your
affecting
psyche.
your psyche. Yeah, it's affecting your productivity. You cannot even be productive in that kind of environment, and before you know it, boss is coming, you're already panicking, anxiety setting, you're already running up and down. Then this is a toxic environment, and you need to get out of that place, because your sanity over it's high, it's highly important than whatever it is that that place is offering. And definitely there are other jobs, even though the economy of Nigeria is kind of discouraging, whereby people it's even hard to get a job. But then, would you rather stay in that kind of environment and you are experiencing negative mental health conditions, and you're just breaking down every day, or you take your liberty and explore more options? I think
Okay.
it's better to explore more options and get out of the toxic environment, as long as it is affecting you negatively and is not even helpful to you at all.
All right. So is there a need to conduct psychological tests on applicants before they are employed, either as a superior or a subordinate?
In a well-structured organization, there ought to be, apart from the when you're doing physical examinations, which is more like a routine in some organization, in some structured organization, they run the regular test. Psychological, the mental health status should also be part of the routine checks.
Okay.
And this is not something that should be conducted by a superior, but it's supposed to be conducted by a trained personnel, a trained mental health personnel, really,
Okay.
so that you will already know, and the organization will be able to know if this individual has some mental health challenges, or there is probably like a possibility of this person having a problem and mental health challenges while working. And the purpose of you knowing is that you'll be able to support the person and assign the person to a probably department or a kind of a work that will support and promote the mental health of that person, and not cause the person to break down. But in organizations nowadays, when they ask for this kind of a thing, it is to discriminate people who are having mental challenges. And once they know that they have a mental health challenge, that automatically means the person will not be offered that job. And because of that, majority of people who are having mental health challenges cannot come up. Even when they are filling this form, they will say, when it comes to that column, do you have a mental health challenge? They will draw probably a cross on it. They will say no, because they know that such environment discriminates. And if that person just any little thing, will say this person has started again. So that is what the workplace should not be like that. There should be the essence of having this information, for them to be privileged to have this information, is to be able to support the person, is to be able to help the person and ensure that whatsoever the work environment promotes mental health of that individual and not exacerbates the condition or makes the person break down, but to support them. But nowadays it's really like the reverse is the case. Once they notice, they sack the person immediately, and that is not supposed to be.
All right. So how can you actually deal with a colleague who doesn't have the same mental alertness or assimilation process as you? Because you said earlier that we assimilate differently. We understand things differently. Because someone who is slow to understand something can actually sometimes get on your last nerve, since you are not created the same way. So how would you actually deal with such?
Well, just as you said, there is individual differences. The way, probably the speed at which I can read is different from the speed at which another person can read or assimilate things. And so, whenever we find ourselves amongst people who probably are a little deficient or are not as versatile as the other colleagues, then it calls for an ability to, or it calls for a need to support that person. And how do you support this person? If there is a task that needs to be completed and you need this person to work on it, you can give some extra time for this person to complete that task.
Okay.
Or you assign someone else to help. You can pair with someone who is a lot faster, okay? And this person, together they will be able to achieve it, instead of discriminating against that person, instead of talking the person down and saying all sorts of degrading words like you are just too slow, you don't get things on time, and all of that. But instead of that, let's support people. Let's let them know, even though you might not have the same ability as others, but there is that support amongst your colleagues.
All right. So for someone who already has a myriad of challenges and they're going through, either from the home front, church, and all, so probably a husband or a wife who just came back, came to the office with loads of challenges from the home front. How do you manage this crisis or challenges without transferring the aggression at the work or with your employees or colleagues?
Okay. You see, we are in an era where there will always be things that get at us, challenges all around us, and ability to manage whatsoever situation and to be able to cope with it. That is what differentiates us from some other set of species. In case whereby an individual, you go to work, you find out that there are things that are so frustrating and you can't just even cope with. You don't have to transfer that aggression on anybody. You can talk it out if you feel like talking it out, and really talking out helps, because after you have talked and you bear it out, before you know it, that there is at least some release of some tension, and then you'll be able to think clearly.
Okay.
But yes, that's just the approach. You talk
So
it
that
out.
that phrase, a problem shared is a problem half solved, is not a myth. It's true.
It's not a myth. It's not a myth.
Okay.
You know, when we keep things bottled up within us, it keeps compiling, and before you know it, later on, let a very light, tiny little thing happen, everything escalates, and the whole thing, it will be as if it's so big, than the way it is. But when we release our tension, when we talk it out, even if you have to take some time, if it has to do with work problems, if you have to take some time on a little vacation to a cool place, a calm place that you know that this particular environment will make you relax, go there, relax yourself, and then stay away from whenever some people are depressed, then you resort to smoking and drinking. That is not a good way of coping with stress, with
Okay.
any stressful situation. That is not a good way. So that's you need to take note of that.
Okay. So how about some environmental challenges? How much does it affect or impact on an average individual or worker's psyche? For example, someone who is working in Lagos, gone through the horrendous traffic or a fight with a bus conductor or a bike man over change or something. There's 100% chance that he or she will transfer such aggression to the first person that he meets at work. Same thing with the news on the insecurity, kidnapping that you hear every day. How much does this affect his or her attitude to work, and how can this be effectively managed?
Where we find ourselves, the environment that we live definitely will affect our behavior and influence our attitude at a point in time. Like, for example, you mentioned Lagos. Lagos is known to be a place whereby there is so much things going on. Even before you get to work, you would have gone through a lot of stress already. And when you get to work, the workload itself is all there waiting for you. And all of this, definitely, we are human beings. It's one in a way or another affects our behavior, affects our attitude, and even the way that we relate with people. So in situations like this, you need to understand that this is your environment. This is where you are. There is little you can do about this environment. You are in it. You are in it.
Okay.
And you need to be able to cope with whatever it is.
All right, then, on a final note, our time is fast spent. Very quickly, what are your last words to people who are suffering from one mental challenge or the other? Very quickly.
Mental health challenges or mental illness is not a death sentence. It can be managed. And so whatever you are going through, whether you're losing sleep, whatever symptoms that you feel, and you know that there is a problem, or you see someone around you that is going through a situation, you try to approach them, talk to them, and you feel when you are able to get through to people and you know that this is really a problem, seek professional help. Okay, don't try to sit at home and manage it, because before you know it, an individual that is depressed, you just find out to be maybe before the day break or the following day that the person has committed suicide. So try to seek help for people, and you as well, if you are going through challenges like this, seek professional help.
Great. Thank you so much for your time with us, Olaleye Adedayo. It's been a wonderful time having this talk with you.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
All right, great. All right, viewers, that's all we can take for today. We've been chatting with Adedayo Olaleye, who is the Executive Director at Mental Affairs, and it's been a wonderful time here on The Conversation. I'm sure that you must have been rightly educated, informed, and entertained. I will definitely see you next time. From the nation's capital, Abuja, I am Annabelle Oji. Good evening.